Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a Oathbreaker Paladin build guide for in Baldur's Gate 3. Now this is what I think to be the strongest version of the Oathbreaker Paladin. The Oathbreaker isn't like amazing class overall, but we can multi-class this and make this quite powerful for what we want it to be. So we're going to obviously start as the Paladin here. Now, depending on the oath, you have to break your oath. Obviously, like coming from a respec, you can pay 1,000 gold to get your subclass back, but if you break your oath, you're going to be stuck as the Oathbreaker Paladin, which is, I think, the best of the Paladin. Now, for the Oath of Ancients, there's some really easy ways to break this one early in Act 1. Some of them are not the greatest choices to make. The Oath of Vengeance, though, if you are getting the Hag's Hair, you can get the Oathbreaker Paladin easily doing that. So we're going to take the Oath of Vengeance here with Inquisitor's Might, which is kind of a nice bonus action. We don't get to keep that for very long, though. As far as our stats go, we're going to be focusing on Charisma and Intelligence. And I'm going to get into why we're going to be leveling Intelligence here, as there's a perfectly good reason for that. The Oathbreaker Paladin's a decent class, but it does have some drawbacks. Now, depending on where we're at in the game, we can dump certain stats. I would recommend dumping your Dexterity early on, and grabbing the Gloves of Dexterity from the Githyanki Kresh. This sets your Dexterity at 18, freeing up some stats for other parts of this. So we can dump our Dexterity, or we can dump our Constitution if you're later on in the game. Alternatively, you can go Strength based, but I think that having a high Intelligence alongside either Constitution or Dexterity works kind of best in this situation. So we'd be going for something like this, roughly. If you take the Charisma increasing Hag's Hair, we can get our Charisma to 18 pretty early on, which is nice. So somewhere around there for stats. And then we're going to take another level of Paladin next. This build is quite interesting in how you can use it, because it's got the ability to summon the dead, but we're going to add that in another way. So for level 2, we get our Fighting Style, one of the best things from the Paladin. So we can take a +1 to armor class. This is just, I would say, probably the best bet overall. But we're going to use a shield, and this is actually really nice. An additional 2 damage with a weapon is quite large in Baldur's Gate 3, and adding that consistently to all of our weapon strikes is pretty nice. If you're going to be focusing more on spells, I would go with the defense, because the increased armor class is very useful, but taking dueling can be great too, just to add some damage to your attacks. So I'm going to go with defense, but if you're going for more melee focus, go with dueling. It's really, really good. As far as our skills go, we're going to take our smites just for the extra damage that we can get from them. If you don't have someone in your party with Bless, you can be the person to take it. It's extremely useful. +1d4 to attack rolls and saving throws is great. But if you have a cleric with it, then that's okay. So we're going to take Command, which is a great crowd control spell. This, for one turn, you can tell a monster to come towards you, drop their weapon. There's a ton of different options, and it's actually a very powerful spell to use. And we can also take like Armor of Faith, increase armor class. If you don't have someone with Bless, definitely take Bless. Divine Favor can be a decent concentration, add a 1d4 of radiant damage. The more damage riders, the better. But for the purpose of this, we'll take the smites. This is probably the most optimal if you don't have someone with that already. Now, this build does get a little bit different here. The further levels of Paladin aren't amazing, and they only give things that other classes will give you through leveling. So like Hunter's Mark is pretty nice, a 1d6, but if we add in another class, the Wizard, we can actually make this very, very strong. So the reason I'm adding in Wizard is that the Wizard has the ability to summon the dead with Necromancer, and it brings a whole lot of spells that actually make this build quite strong. So for our cantrips, we're going to take both of these are great for dealing extra damage on water, so having a cantrip that can be both lightning and cold, very useful. Firebolt can be useful too if you need to explode something. It's a great useful spell, but I really like Minor Illusion or Friends. If you're the face of the party, you should definitely have Friends, because you're going to use this a lot in dialogue options. Minor Illusion, though, is one of my favorites. I think this is very useful. If you don't have someone with, you need to have someone with Minor Illusion. It's just so useful for stealing items and for starting combat. You can group enemies together for like a fireball. As far as our weapons go, we're going to go with Fog Cloud can be pretty decent. Crowd control. We're going to take Mage Armor. Now, this can be useful if you want to go with Clothing. We're actually not going to take it, my bad. We're going to take Find Familiar, Chromatic Orb, Grease for crowd control and setting up fire damage can be nice. Thunderwave has pushback. Sleep is good early on for just, if you have a couple goblins, you can just turn off, you can stop 3 goblins with sleep, which is really nice. Shield is very useful, so this increases your armor class by 5, and you take no damage from magic missile, and we're going to take magic missile as well. We can swap out Grease for Ice Knife, which is actually not a bad spell early on if you have Create Water set up, because water is very useful. Find Familiar can be nice to take like a spider or something, just to go with the overall theme of the Oathbreaker Paladin. So once we get to choose our subclass, we're going to take Necromancer, which gives us the ability to heal for hit points equal to twice the spell slot level. So if we kill something level 6, that gives us 12 health points. If it's a Necromancer spell, it becomes 3 times that, so we get a nice 18 healing from something that's literally just a spell we use to damage. Very useful. Undead and constructs are ineffective, but there is one spell that we get that is really crazy, and I want to show us how to. There's a very specific piece of gear that the Oathbreaker can take advantage of, but I'll give you a few different gear options at the end. As far as our spell slots, I like Longstrider. Increase movement speed by 3 is always useful, and Fog Cloud just to blind and heavily obscure. Having some form of crowd control like that and just trying it out, figuring out the best uses for it, I think is very, very nice to do. So Chromatic Orb is actually a really good spell, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it. You can swap types of damage that it deals, and it can be upcast, and it gets pretty good damage. Magic Missile is just your reliable hitter, and then Ice Knife being a very nice, if you have water set up. I think water is one of the greatest things you can do in Baldur's Gate 3 is have set up water, because that deals double damage for a lot of spells that are pretty good. Now, Hold Person I think is one of the iconic paladin spells to have. Like the Oath of Vengeance gets this. I think that Hold Person is very useful because you can just literally hold a person in place, and then any attack from within 3 meters is a critical. So if they're held in water, you can literally just use a cantrip like Shocking Grasp and deal a lot of damage with that, with the critical hits. Another level 2 spell that a lot of people enjoy is Clouds and Daggers. I don't use it a whole lot. It does do like crowd control. You can put it in a doorway and it'll deal slashing damage to the foes there. But Flaming Spear is another good concentration. If you want to have like an ally summoned, you can summon Flaming Spear and it's literally just a ball of fire that rolls around with you. I think it's pretty good just to have for splitting out aggro. You can move that around and kind of play the battlefield that way. We're going to take that. And you can take off whatever of these you're not using the most. Hold Person is really useful to have, so we're going to go with that. As far as cantrips go, Bone Chill just kind of makes sense with the necrotic damage. We're also using gloves that'll increase your necrotic damage if you want to keep your dexterity high and dub Constitution with the Constitution Amulet. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing this to make it a very strong build. At level 2, we should also probably take either Misty Step or Scorching Ray. We usually get Misty Step from the Oath of Vengeance Paladin, but Scorching Ray can be just consistent damage, 6d6, pretty nice to have. I guess we'll take Misty Step there, level 2. And then for prepared spells, Ice Knife's pretty nice just for consistent damage, but Scorching Ray is also a very useful one. Misty Step does only use a bonus action, so it can be a very advantageous spell to have. We do get a late feat because we multi-class kind of early on. I would recommend taking your intelligence up. Just getting your spell casting ability up for intelligence is pretty huge because a lot of the spells that we get are from Wizard. For the next level, we get haste, which is very, very useful. If you have a sorcerer, the sorcerer should twin haste and put it on you because that's kind of ideal. If we have that, we can take these two are the most damaging. Counterspell is really great. We can take Animate Dead, but we're going to get it at next level, so it's almost better to just wait for that. Glyph of Warding is another really nice spell that you can use. You can set this up to deal damage. You can set it up outside of battle too, so if you know you're getting into a fight, you can set that up. Now, Fireball, it deals 8d6 damage, so it's pretty consistent damage across the board. I think that it's pretty useful, but Counterspell or Fear can be another great option because with Fear they drop their weapons and you can pick up their weapons and then run off when it kind of makes them useless in combat. So don't be afraid to take either one of those, but we also get to choose at next level another spell, so that makes it nice. So then we can take our counter spell. Sleet Storm is also good to set up icy surfaces, but Glyph of Warding, and again, haste is probably the best spell on here, but if you got a sorcerer, they can twin it, and that's honestly much better. So we'll take counter spell. Glyph of Warding is also really great though. So now we get ourselves the Animate Dead. Create an undead servant from a corpse, and it's always prepared, level 3. We also get the creatures created with Animate Dead have additional hit points equal to your wizard level, and your proficiency bonus is added to their damage. So that's why we want to increase intelligence. It's just going to make them stronger. Although the Oathbreaker Paladin, if you get to level 9, it has an increase to the damage that they can deal, but I think it's actually better to go this route. When you use Animate Dead, you can raise an additional corpse. It just speaks for itself. That's incredible. Level 6 wizard brings a lot to the table, and we can take those spells. If you want to take off Find Familiar, I think it's nice just to have, if you get to using it. If you don't use it, don't take it. Conjure Minor Elemental. Enough said. If we set up water, we can have 2 ice methods, which will deal a lot of cold damage. It's actually really good, and I think, again, cold damage is super useful, so Ice Storm can go very well here. It doesn't fully fit with the Oathbreaker being evil, but like Ice Storm, it sucks. Ice sucks. If you live in Canada, you'll know. We'll take off that and we'll put on Minor Elemental, just because we can have extra targets there to spread out aggro. Fireball or Flaming Spear is also great, and then Find Familiar. There is another item that makes this build really powerful too, and I'll show that off at the end. Confusion is actually really good crowd control. It's like Fireball, but for crowd control. You can confuse a group of enemies. Everard's Black Tentacles kind of makes sense for this build because it's kind of like their evil Oathbreaker, so it makes difficult terrain. You can go with something like that if it feels like it fits your style of gameplay, but I think there's some better ones to go with. What's nice is since the Paladin Paladin's a half caster, so it gave us 1 level, and then we're going to take 10 levels of Wizard, which will allow us to take level 6 spells from scrolls, which is very useful, and I'll get into that afterwards. But I think Confusion and maybe even Blight, because we do get that extra damage from any type of necromancy spell. Glyph of Warding, it's tough here. I like to personally take like Ice Storm, and just because it creates a icy surface, which is really great for crowd control. Blight can be useful too, but we get ourselves another ability improvement, and we typically want to take this up. It'd be nice to get our Constitution up a little bit higher to give us some more health. Having higher Charisma is great too, but if we could ideally use a Hag's here on that or our Constitution. But I think getting our Intelligence up is kind of the way to go here, so we'll go with that. Although an increase to Charisma can be quite useful. Next, we're going to go with Conjure Elemental. This is very, very useful because at level 5, we get a level 6 spell slot, so we get the level 6 version of this as well, giving us a really great choice of options from the Myrmidons. Cone of Cold is great too. This is 8d8 of cold damage in a large area. I think this is one of the most underrated spells in the game. It's really high damage, and it's doubled anytime that there's water set up, so Cone of Cold can deal a lot. Hold Monster is another really great one, but as far as our prepared spells, something like that's great. We're going to be mostly summoning and controlling the battlefield with a variety of different spells. We'll take Flame Bolt because we don't have that utility. Mage Hand can be great though, because you can drop a water bottle and can throw the water bottle to set up more water, which is really nice. Hold Monster, super useful. Banish can be pretty great too. Cloud Kill is nice because you can have your zombies in it, so this actually has some utility. Your zombies won't take any damage from poison, so you can literally just reposition it all around, and your zombies can just clean up. It gets pretty powerful. So we're going to take probably Hold Monster. You can drop Hold Person because this works on people as well, but this can be upcast to multiple people. We have a lot of crowd control. We also have Command, so that's really nice. So don't be afraid to take something a little bit earlier in the spell slots that we got. We have a lot of options. But as far as gear goes, this is what makes it a true Oathbreaker. So we obviously have ourselves the Oathbreaker Paladin helmet here, the Gold Gloss Heraldic Helm, which is in the Mind Flare colony, so you can grab that there. I'm using the Jade Green and Black dye on it, So I have some pretty interesting gear. I think that the armor of agility is pretty good if you have a high dexterity. We dumped our dexterity, so it doesn't look amazing right now. But with the gloves on, we have an armor class of 26, which is pretty good considering we don't have. If we put on the helmet of Baldur, we'd get ourselves a 28 or 27, and if we had the ring, we'd get a 28, and then the cape would get a 29. So we can get this pretty good just from the items. But I think Circlet of Bones works really well too, because allied undead within 6 meters are resistant to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage, meaning they take half physical damage, which is really nice. It also lets you cast Animate Dead, so if you run low on spell slots, you do have this as a backup. But for the purposes, I'm just going to leave that helmet on because it looks cool. The Shade Slayer Cloak gives you the ability to hit critical hits a little bit higher frequency. We have the Infernal Rapier from Will's questline here, which allows us to use our Charisma modifier as our attack modifier, which is really nice. So we're going to be hitting things a lot more frequently here because it's adding the spellcasting modifier to its attack rolls. And then also we got Viconia's Walking Fortress here, which is a great shield, +3, and then all the bonuses that come with it. I think the Cryptlord ring is a really great ring. This gives us a level 6 necromancy spell, so we can create undead. You typically would only use this once anyways. And what this does is it gives us like some really high level zombie creatures that are really useful. Killer Sweetheart, so we get the classic critical hit. We can also take something like the Constitution Amulet to take our health from 80 to 128, which is really, really nice. Evasive Shoes for +1 armor class. And that is, we got a lot of summons. This is what the class is all about. So we can summon in our spider. The spider is decent because it can do webs. Or I guess maybe not this form of spider. And then we can also summon in our flaming sphere, which is really nice. It can be upcast to deal more damage if we really want to. But there's our big flaming sphere boy. And then we can summon in our ice mephits, which is nice because that's 2 extra cold damage dealers. If we have water set up, they can explode. Like, they do good amounts of damage. 4 to 24, 2 to 12, and that's doubled. And then the chromatic orb cold, like, they have pretty good utility. Then for our major elemental, since we do get a level 6, we can bring in a water, fire, earth, or air myrmidon. I also really like the earth elemental because the earth elemental does knockdown damage, so you can call this guy in. He's pretty strong, 126 health. That's pretty good. And he's got multi-attack and seismic attack, so very nice to bring that out as well. If you have us, you can summon us too. So that's pretty good. Lobotomize us. You can bring in Scratch as well, which is useful. There's lots of options here. We also have our, like, Summon the Dead. With the sword, we also get to summon a Cambion here, which is... This just goes overall with the build perfectly. The amount of damage that you can deal with. You got 6, 21, 21, 126, 41, 82 health. Like, that's a lot to help spread out damage between your team. And this can all be brought out before even fighting anyone. And once you get fighting, you can do Create Undead, which will give you a mummy or multiple. You can do 3 at a time, which is crazy. And then on top of that, we also have our other summoning spells. So it gets pretty strong. This is a very powerful build, the Oathbreaker. Now, you can go the full 12 levels in Oathbreaker, and you will get Create Undead. And then you can use the gear to get, like, different spells here. But I think that adding in the Wizard is great, because then we got also, like, Lightning Bolt, Scorching Ray, Magic Missile. We get the Command, so that's a great crowd control. We can do Grovel, make them fall prone. There's lots of options here for damage. It's a very powerful class. So the Oathbreaker Paladin in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know in the comments what you think of this build, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video useful, hit the subscribe button below.